Hey everyone, it's Daniel Lotz here of 922 Films and Lots Media, and I want to come here and talk to you today about video editing. I have worked in the business of video editing for multiple years. I had recently a job as a wedding editor, and I would edit plenty of weddings, getting paid. It was my full-time job. So I want to kind of bring that skill to you guys because I feel like not enough people who talk about editing have actual professional experience. So I want to just give you a few quick, simple tips. That will completely improve your video editing. So the first one I would like to talk about, if you're just joining us, the first one I want to talk about is J and L cuts. I believe that's what they're called. I don't see enough filmmakers doing this. A lot of people just cut right on the next scene. So if it's like one clip to the next clip, they'll immediately cut that. That'll be the cut. They have no audio kind of crossover from one cut to the next. So what ends up happening is a lot of stilted dialogue. What you do is, if you have stilted cuts, what ends up really happening is your performances come off more wooden than they really should be, because people don't look like they're listening or they're reacting to things. So with a J or an L cut, I would say always make sure to fade the video, the last video that you're doing your edit on, with the next video, so that it looks like there is some sort of bleed over with either the audio or the visuals, and that really helps sell a performance that people are actually listening, because most of a performance is actually listening. If you've ever gone to any acting classes, you'll know that 50% of acting is reacting. So that's why a J and L cut is really important. And if you have any questions down below, please hit me up and I will try to answer them as best as possible. Second thing I would say is using nested sequences. I never really see anyone talk about using nested sequences online. But I found this little trick, and this is really good if you want to batch render a bunch of things at one time. So I do a lot of like client work, and let's say you want to do 5 or 10 videos in one timeline. What you can do is put them all at the end of a session, put them all into a nested sequence, collect all those nested sequences, render them out, and then what will happen is you can render them all as one batch render. So then you're not wasting time going and rendering each one, and it takes a lot more time. And I think a lot of people do that, and they don't really realize that you can save a lot of time doing that. Beyond that, another thing I think I noticed that a lot of newbies don't do, that is just, I learned this from another local filmmaker when I was a lot younger, was crossfading audio is so big, because almost all your edits are going to sound really sloppy and look really sloppy if you don't have some sort of crossfade of the audio. Because if you don't crossfade it, it's going to sound like you're going to have this hiss from one clip, and then the very next clip is going to have this kind of a different tone, and then you're not going to be able to make it sound good. But if you crossfade it, it will make your edit seem more seamless and make you seem like a better editor than you probably actually are. So I think that's another really great tip that kind of improves the way you come off as an editor. I think other things is always having a production style. I've always been very adamant about having a production style. A lot of people just throw in a crossfade or like a flash effect to make their edits seem more flashy, but ultimately what ends up happening is it looks more amateur. So I think having a sort of a production style, things that you will or won't do, like I rarely if ever do crossfades. That is a production style choice that I've made from the very beginning, because I want all my edits to look very consistent. And if they don't look consistent, then I feel like people won't know what my brand is. And I think that's how I ended up getting a job as a wedding editor, was because I had set up a consistent style that I could show to people, and then they would say, oh, that makes a lot of sense. You do this project to this one, and you're having all that sort of same style that helps you make yourself recognizable. So I think people should use less crossfades, because I think crossfades, unless you do it in a very stylistic way, it ends up looking very cheesy and tacky. I also noticed a lot of people will like do like fade to blacks after a scene. I think that looks terrible unless it's the end or the beginning of a shot. And I've noticed on YouTube, if you do a fade to black at the very beginning, it almost makes your footage more like distorted in the beginning because of the way YouTube's compression works. So it ends up making your whole film look a little bit more crappy if you're fading into black. I don't have a problem with fading out, but fading into black usually makes the footage on YouTube have this weird kind of compression effect on it that I don't really like. But beyond that, I think just editing is about learning how to get speedy. I think so many people want to know the hotkeys. I don't know all the hotkeys. I don't care to know all the hotkeys because ultimately, I believe that there's only one hotkey you really need. Actually, two hotkeys you need to know: the C and the V. Pretty much that's it. You need to know how to cut, and you need to know how to copy and paste, and you need to know how to move stuff, and that's it. If people want to get all flashy and do all these other things, but ultimately you just need to know the very simple cut tool, because the cut tool is what filmmakers have been using since film was around. They didn't have all these extra tools. They just cut the film, they sliced it, and they put it together. And that's what you're doing.